This is the Maths Non-Calculator Walking Talking mock paper for grade D or grade 4 exam questions. It's only a stage test, as you can see, and it's for OCR, so make sure you have the right paper in front of you. Okay, so looking at the first question, we've got a stem and leaf diagram. If you're sitting the new spec in 2017 or onwards, then you won't have stem and leaf diagrams in your exam. So if you're going through this in year 10, year 9, year 8, you don't need to be able to do stem and leaf diagrams. So you can skip this part of the video. However, year 11, you need to understand the key for a stem and leaf diagram. The 4/1 represents 41, so we've got the tens and the units. So for example, 2 and 8 is 28, 4 and 5 is 45, etc. The actual question tells you to be able to read the stem and leaf diagram. So we're asked for the range to begin with, and then the median. There's obviously also the mode and the mean that could be in this type of question, but they're not tested for this. The range is the max, take away the minimum, so I need to find those two values from the stem and leaf diagram. I've got 2 marks, so first one I'm going to show the examiner that I know exactly how to find the max, which is 68, and the minimum, which is 28. And I'm going to use my column method to take them away. Although loads of you are probably thinking, well, I could do that answer in my head really quickly. Always do the working. Always show your method marks. So you've got your method mark for your subtraction and your answer mark as being 40. So that's what M1 and A1 stand for. Part B is asking you to find the median. So that's the middle value. You're quite lucky with stem and leaf diagrams because everything's already been put in order for you. So 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And that's key with the stem and leaf diagram. Everything's always in order. However, just be careful because it's not going from like left to right in a list. When you cross them off, be careful that you do them in the right order. So lowest and highest have gone. Next lowest, next highest. Then I'm going to go, okay, now I've got 30 and 62. Next low, next high. Now 32 is my next lowest value. Be careful down here because what people often do is they'll go to 53 to cross that off as the highest, but it's not, it's 59. Make sure you go to the end of the line to cross off the highest value. Then it's low, high, low, high, low, high, lowest, highest. And then you'll see that we start to converge. And we end up having these 2 values left in the middle. So we've got 45 and 47. Now it asks for the median, not 2 medians. So we have to have one value. Well, if I write out 45 and 47 next to each other, then I can see that the answer is going to be 46. If it wasn't as simple, you'd add these 2 numbers up and divide by 2. And that would give you what the middle value is. Next we're looking at a different test. So we had a French test, now we've got a Spanish test. The range of the marks for the Spanish test was 30 and the median was 41. It says which did they perform better in, French or Spanish, and give a reason for your decision. Well, there's 2 different things we can compare, and you must do a comparison here. You're looking at the ranges, and you've got a range that you've worked out, and you've got a range you've been given. And then you've also got a median that you've worked out and a median you've been given. So we're going to compare one of them. If I compare the ranges, I can see that the range of 40 and 30 tells me that the Spanish test was the best performed. And that's because the smaller the range, the more consistent the pupils performed in that exam. So I'm going to write Spanish because they were more consistent. So the smaller the range, the more consistent they are. However, we could have compared the medians and we would have had a different answer if we'd have done that. So I'll write down what that answer would have been as well. We could say that French actually was the best performed. And again, I'm going to give a reason. That's because for French, the median value was higher. So they got a higher mark in the French test as the median than they did with the Spanish test. So either one is fine as long as you give the reason, basically. Quite often ask you to compare the range and an average in an exam question, so be prepared to answer those in a sentence. Right, next question. The diagram in the diagram, AB is parallel to CD. Right. Mark your parallel lines immediately. As soon as this comes up all the time, the first thing you must do is mark on really clearly where your parallel lines are, because you're looking for Z's and F's. Z's and F's are not the technical terms, so you can't use them. And actually the parallel lines in another exam could be, they're not always going to be straight, they could be diagonal, so just be aware of that. You have mathematical names, and you have your Z's and F's. You can't say Z and F in the exam. You have to use the proper names. The way to remember them is by using two acronyms or phrases that will hopefully help you to remember. The Z is the alternate angle, and the way I remember that is because the alphabet goes from A to Z, and then you've got the F angle, which is corresponding, and the way I remember that is because the F and the C stand for football club. So you must know those two names. The question asks me to find X. Now you must not measure the angle X, it's not drawn to scale, okay? So make sure that you use angle rules to find out what the value is. Right, so I'm looking at X, and first of all I'm going to look for an F. That would mean that, so X and R would be the same size angle, but I don't know what R is, so I can't use the corresponding rule. But there is a Z there. It's kind of like a stretched out Z. I don't know if you can see it, I've just drawn it on for you, which means that the X value and the 115 are the same size, so X is 115. You have to write your answer there, and that's because they're alternate angles. If you don't write the reason, with this question you get an answer mark and a method mark. It's a 2-mark question, but quite often in exams they won't give you any marks unless you can give a reason. So angle X is an alternate angle. You cannot say it's a Z angle. Now we're finding Y. I've got 3 marks for this one, so it's going to be a little bit more work to do. Again, it asks me to give reasons for each step of my working. So first of all, I'm going to look where Y is. Then I'm going to start looking for Z's and F's. Well, I can see a Z here. It's like a back to front Z, but that means I know that the angle I've just marked on, I'll put a little Y in there in a second to identify them as being the same. They're going to be equal, but I don't know how big it is. But if I extend that line from Q to T, it's a straight line. Now I know that angles on a straight line add up to 180 degrees, so I can work out what Y is, which will then tell me what the other Y is. So angle QSR, so that's the one I wrote on with the Y, is, well, I need to work out what it is. So again, column method, 10 take 5 is going to be 5, and then 7 take 7 is 0, and then 1 take away nothing is 105. So angle QSR is 105 degrees. As angles on a straight line add to 180. So that means I know that Y is 105 degrees, so I've got my method mark here, I've got my answer mark, Y is 105. But obviously I need to again explain why that is. You can't just, the examiner won't presume you know why. So you must then write that Y is 105 as it is an alternate angle. Okay, you must make sure you give your reason here. That means I've now got method mark, and answer mark to get the full 3 marks. Okay, next question. We're looking at algebra. Now this is where you should be picking up your quick marks. This type of question, take your time, label your diagram, write down everything really clearly, do the question again, check you get the same answer. Algebra, if you practice it enough, you should be able to do it so quickly and so easily that you're going to pick these marks up well, quickly and accurately is the key, but it's where you'll make a big difference in terms of your grades. So multiply out, get rid of the brackets. I'm going to put my lines on. 4 times x is 4x. and then 4 times minus 5 is minus 20. Really easy mark to pick up. Just practice them. The next one is factorise. You need to recognise that as a command word if you don't already know it. To factorise means to put into brackets. It's normally with a question that says to multiply out or to expand. So hopefully that will remind you that it's the opposite to what you've just done. So put back into brackets. You need to find a factor, hence factorise. Well, there's no numerical factor, so I'm going to just take out an x. X times x is x squared, and x times minus 6 is minus 6x. So I'm just going to expand them to double check it works the other way around. So x times x is x squared, x times minus 6 is minus 6x. So the question and my answer match, so that must be the factorised solution. Again, now substitution, x is equal to minus 5, it's a key point. I need to show the examiner that I know what I'm doing. I'm using a negative number, so I'm going to be really careful. I'm going to use brackets to make sure I get this right. First of all, I'm going to substitute the minus 5 into the x squared. So minus 5 squared, and then I'm going to add 3 times minus 5. And I've done that in brackets to separate them, so I'll make sure I get them both right. Be really careful when you're squaring negative numbers. Your solution is going to be positive because minus 5 times by itself, minus 5, is going to give you positive 25. A negative times by a negative is a positive. I've then got to add on 3 times minus 5. Now positive times a negative is a negative solution. So I end up with this plus and minus sign next to each other, which we should know. Plus and a minus, like I've just said, becomes a minus. So our solution is 10. Now this is quite a bit of work there for the method mark. It is only 2 marks, but if you're really clear with your working like I've done here, you'll always get the method mark even if you don't get the answer mark correct. So, okay, so for this question, we're looking, well, it's a big question, it's a 6 mark question, so you must take your time. Peggy's buying material to make curtains. Here is her order. 3.5 metres of material at £23.60, and she's also needing to pay for 4 metres of lining fabric at £4.50 per metre. So she's making curtains and this is the price. The question wants to know the total cost of making that order. The first thing I look at is that I've been given 2 pieces of information to find the total cost. So the first thing is basically to write that out. Show the examiner that you know that to find 3.5 metres of an amount, you need to times those values together. Remember, of in maths means to times. The second sentence, same again, so 4 metres times by £4.50. So there's going to be your first method mark. Next thing you have to do is obviously work them out. Now, you're working with money and you're working with metric units and you've got decimals involved. So the skill they're really testing is just if you can multiply decimals, but you're getting 6 marks for it, so make sure you take your time. Take decimals out, that's the way I would always suggest to do it. So you're going to times 2,360 by 35 rather than doing 3.5 times by £23.60, and then 450 times by 4 rather than £4.50 times by 4. So now just be careful that you don't make any mistakes with your arithmetic. So 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 6 is 30, 3 times 5 is 15, add on the 3 to get 18, 2 times 5 is 10, add the 1 to get 11. Now I'm going to times by the 3, so I'm putting a 0 in. 3 times 3 is 0, 3 times 6 is 18, 3 times 3 is 9, carry the 1, means I've got 10, and 3 times 2 is 6, add the 1 is 7. And I'm going to add those values together, so 0, 0, 16, 2, and 8. Just going to check that. Okay. So now I'm looking at the decimal places I had. Well, I took out 3 decimal places, so I'm going to go put my decimal back 3 spaces. So you can see I've used arrows there to make sure I get it in the right place, and that gives me £82.60. And I'm going to move on to the second calculation. So 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 5, 20, 4 times 4, 16, add the 2, 18. Again, I took out 2 decimal places from the £4.50, so I'm going to put both of those back in to get £18. I'm now going to add these values together because it's asking me for the total cost. So I'm going to take my £82.60 and I'm going to add that to the other £18. Again, I'm going to use column method, so 0, 6, that's 10, so I need to carry the 1, that's 10 again. Which gives me a total value of £100 and 60p. You can see I'm just checking it again, like you should always do in an exam. So where did these 6 marks come from? Because actually the maths in this question wasn't very hard. Well, 1 method mark for showing the examiner you need to times. 2nd method mark for doing the multiplication, and an answer mark for getting the answer. The second calculation is easier, so you're only going to get an answer mark, not a method mark. Then you actually then have to add those 2 values together, so your £82, your 60, so your £82.60 and your £18, add them together, that's another method mark. Then your answer mark comes from the £100 and the 60p. Okay, looking at the next question, we've been given a rectangle, so a diagram shows a rectangle ABCD, and we've been given some measurements. We've been told that AB is equal to 12 centimetres. And we know that BD is equal to 8 centimetres. Now, AB is 12, but we've only been given one measurement of 9, which means that one must be 3, because 9 add 3 is 12 centimetres. And for BD being 8 centimetres, well, I've been given 6, so again, that's got to be 2. So the first thing they've done is tested me on if I can label a diagram. Well, of course I can label a diagram. Pick up the easy marks where you can see them. Work out the ratio of grey area to white area. So area is a really key word. It's a command word. They want you to find the area of the rectangles above. You can all find area. It's a really simple thing to find. They just put it into a bit of a, I guess, more tricky question. So I'm looking at my different rectangles. I've got measurements for all of them. So 3 times 6 is 18 centimetres squared. I'll just write 18 for now. I'll write this centimetres squared in later. The other grey rectangle is 2 times by 9. I'm just going to bring that down. It's 18, but 9 times by 6 is 54, and 2 times by 3 is 6. So I've just worked out all of the areas of each section. I've labelled it onto the diagram. Always use the diagrams they give you to help you. Okay, so grey, 18 add 18, and then white, I've got 54 add 6. So again, I'm showing all my working. I'm not doing anything in my head. I've got 36 and I've got 60. And we're looking at area, so I've got 36 centimetres squared to 60 centimetres squared. And that's the ratio of grey to white area. 3 marks. Only an area question. Make sure you show your method really clearly. So you can pick up all 3 marks. Part B of the question tells us we've got another rectangle. Okay, this time they haven't given us a diagram, but that's fine. The area is 72 centimetres squared, and the rectangle has been divided up. So we've got a ratio of 7 to 5. So if we sketch I would always do this. If they don't give me a diagram, I'd sketch it myself. The areas are a ratio of 7 to 5. And we are being asked to find the area of the larger part. So that's the part I've shaded in there. Obviously 7 parts is bigger than 5 parts. Now the problem is we can't find the area of the large section, which is 7 parts, until we know how big 1 part is. So go back to my ratio. I've got 7 and 5, which gives me 12 parts in total. And I know that the total size of the whole rectangle is 72. So I'm going to divide 72 by 12, and that will tell me what 1 part is. What's the area of 1 part? Now, if you don't know your 12 times table, or if you don't know any times table, please just list them out like I'm doing here. It's worth so much more, well, it's so much more beneficial for you to write them out, spend 30 seconds doing that, and make sure you don't make any mistakes, than getting it wrong because you don't need times tables. So 72 divided by 12 was 6. 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72. So 1 part is 6 centimetres squared. they've asked me to calculate the area of the larger part, so that's 7 times by 6 centimetres squared, which is 42 centimetres squared. Okay, so our last question, we're looking at fractions. Again, it comes up every single year. I can guarantee you there'll be a question on fractions, so make sure you know how to do them. There's lots of different rules that can get confusing. You've got KFC for division. When you divide fractions, that's keep, flip, change. When you add and subtract, you have to make sure the denominators are the same. And if you multiply, you just literally times the numerators times the denominators, which is what we've got here. So I need to work it out, so I'm going to do 3 times 5 to give me 15, and 4 times 9 to give me 36. Now that would normally be a A1 question, just 1 mark. Here I've been given 2 marks, so I must make sure that I read the second part. It tells me to give my answer in its simplest form. That means I need to reduce the values of 15 and 36. I need to divide them both by something. Well, I can see that they're both divisible by 3. So what I'm going to do is we'll show the examiner, write that down, show him that I'm dividing by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5, 36 divided by 3 is 12, so that's my final answer. I know I can't go any further because 5 is prime, so look out for that. There's my 2 marks. Now adding mixed numbers, or subtracting mixed numbers, which is an integer with a fraction, is worth more marks. The first thing we need to do is write each of these fractions as an improper fraction. So to do that, I need to do the integer 2 times by 3. That's going to give me 6. And then I need to add on the numerator. So I've got 7/3 altogether. The other fraction, I've got 1 times 4, which is 4. And then I add on the 3 to get 7/4. So 7/3 and 7/4. Like I said earlier, I can't add them till the denominators are the same. So I'm going to make them both into 12. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So I end up with 4 times 7 is 28, 7 times 3 is 21, and I get an answer of 49/12. Now that's right, but I am asked to give my answer as a mixed number. So 49/12 is an improper fraction. I'm going to list out my 12 times table like I did in an earlier question to make sure that I get this right. So 12, 24, 36, 48. So 12 goes into 49 4 times. I've got 49/12. So I've got 1 remainder, and that's 1/12, which is remaining, and that gives me my 3 marks. Right, just like you should always do when you get a mock paper back, flick through all of these questions, make a note of anything you have to revise, make a list where it says, just underneath where it says please do not write on this page. Do write on the page, write down everything you need to revise. And just be aware of the 2 formulae. We didn't use them in this mock, but area of a trapezium and volume of a prism are on that front page if you're doing your paper in summer 2016. So please do be aware of that and use them if you need to use them.